welcome back to another episode of Jacey's Creek. If I sound a little bit stuffy throughout this episode, it's probably because I am. I woke up this morning and I was planning on recording as much episodes as I could, and I realized that my voice was gone. So I looked it up and I was like, what to do when your voice is gone? They said, get cough drop. I don't have any cough drops. I didn't really look it up, but the other day I did look up, what to do when your throat feels closed, and it said drink lots of water and eat a banana. So I ate a banana before this episode. Hopefully that works. We're gonna see. So again, my name's Emily. This is Jacey's Creek, where we talk about Pacey and Joey as a couple and as individuals, so that way we can get a real idea of who they are and what they're like and all this different kind of stuff. So if you like this, make sure to follow me on Witter and Potter, that's on Instagram. TikTok is Pacey and Joey, and lastly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel where I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So without further ado, let's get into this episode. So, this episode, I believe, came out on November 22nd, 2000, and this is where Pacey, Jack, after someone puts the boat, an administration boat, into the school building with the man's dog on the board. So this is where the first thing comes in hand, and this is kind of like a silly episode, so I feel like it's going to be like a really short episode like it's been doing, because there's not that many scenes with them, because sometimes it goes with Dawson or this, but this is one of my favorite episodes of season 4 because of Dawson and Pacey. So then we have the first scene is of Joey, like I said, and they're in the school hallway, and Jack and Dawson are walking down the hallway when a student runs into the hall and calling for people to follow him into the pool room, which I'm like, they have a pool room? That is so cool. I don't know. I don't have a pool room. Capeside makes it such a boring small town, and then they have this. I'm like, you wanna know what a boring small town is? It's when you have 15 banks. That's when a boring small town is. And barely any restaurants besides Mexican and Chinese. Haha, that's my town. So everyone says, the student says, everybody, the swimming pool. You gotta see what they did to the swimming pool. And the student too says, my, and Joey, this is when they're at the pool room. And Joey says, you don't see this every day. And Mitch says, what the hell is this? And the principal says, that's my boat. And my dog. And Jack says, who could have possibly, and Dawson's laughing and says, I should have thought of this. And Joey says, Dawson, while we do recognize your talent as a witty, practical joker, I think that not even you could pull up their legacy. And principal says, Chester, come here. And some students pull to the edge and help the dog hop off, and the dog walks over to Jack and sits down, and Jack looks nervously down at the dog, and the principal says, do you know that dog, Mr. McPhee? And Jack nervously goes, no. You're such a bad liar. So, Pacey, and this goes to the next scene, where Pacey, Jack, and Dawson are reported to the principal's office, and one at a time, they get, what's the word? Called into the principal's office to be investigated, basically. So, Mitch says, we're on your side, Pacey, but you got to get to the bottom of this mystery. And circumstances require that at least we could consider you as a possible subject. And then it goes to, Dawson, and he says, what circumstances would those be? And Mitch says, Pacey says, what circumstances would those be? And Mitch says, well, given you're my son, that's to Dawson, follow that you have access to the master key to the school, therefore nearby, principal. And the principal says, Mr. Witter, everyone in Capeside is aware that you have rather sad fate of the late views of the true love, which I believe gave you access to the maintenance storage faculty and the yacht club, where my boat resided at the time of the boating napping, if you will. And then it goes they ask Pacey, like, and this is where scene 1 of Pacey and Joey, and the principal goes with Mitch and the principal are questioning Pacey to tell his tale, and the principal says, "You said that you didn't pull this stunt. Fine, convince me. Tell me everything, every single thing you did yesterday." And this is one of my favorite parts because he goes, "Yesterday." And he goes, "Now let me see. Where was I? Oh, yes. I was right here." And then it goes to, like, Joey and Pacey outside of the Cape Side police station. And they're standing there by her truck talking while Doug is waiting for Doug to come out. And Pacey says, "Oh, yes, I was right here." And Joey says, "Hey, Pace." And they're, like, together, and they're, like, his forehead is on her forehead, and it's just so cute. And Pacey says, And Joey says, "You're a pushover. You gave in." And Pacey says, "No, I am not a pushover. I just felt the need to explore my options." And Joey says, "Pacey, for 5 years your brother has been nagging you about spending every day with him, observing police policies, and you always tell him to stick it. Then you take some meaningless career aptitude test, and suddenly you are watching the lost episodes of Cop Rock and taking him upon his dubious offer." And Pacey says, "Well, don't you think I look sexy in a uniform, And Joey says, "Besides the point," which we all know that that's exactly what Joey was thinking. And Pacey says, "Oh, I don't think so at all." And Doug comes out waiting for Pacey, and Pacey says, "Well, give me a kiss goodbye before I hit the rough and tumble and Sandwich Jungle." And Joey says, "I'll pray for you, sweetheart." Which I like how she says that. Like, it was so funny to me because I'm like, me too, Joey. And Pacey says, Pacey sighs, and then he says, "Hi, Doug," and Joey says, "Hi, Doug," and, like, she waves at him. And Doug says, "Hi, Joey, take care," and Joey says, "Take care of this punk for me, will you?" And also, the way that Joey waves is just so funny to me, and it reminds me of season 6, episode, I believe, 16, or I think it was 17, where she waves at Pacey in the office, and she, like, waves at him. That's what it reminds me of. And she says, "Take care of this punk for me. See if maybe you can straighten him out a little bit." And Pacey says, "Straight isn't really part of Doug's vocabulary, you know?" And Doug goes, "Yeah, that's funny. Hurry up. We gotta get going." Which I just find that so funny. There was just so much going on, and I'm like, that right there was priceless. So then we have scene 2 of Pacey, and he is in the principal's office, and the principal and Mitch are trying to figure out what they came from Pacey. And the principal goes, where did you go with Deputy Witter?" And Pacey says, "You mean my brother? Where do you think?" And they went to the local donut shop, which, I don't know, I always heard that, like, policemen go there, like, to get a donut or something, which I think that's just, Family Guy or something. And so Pacey and Doug are sitting and eating and donuts. And so Pacey says, "I'm shaking my head in disbelief." And I just want to point out that the one thing that's next to me right now is a donut pillow, and it says, "Donut wake me up." So I find this scene kind of funny. And so Doug says, "Don't judge a book by its prologue, wise ass. There's plenty more coming up. More than an episode of Cops could teach you, believe me." And Pacey says, "Really?" And Doug says, "Mm-hmm." And Pacey says, "Let me brace myself for that." And then they're again at the principal's office, and now Pacey turns to grill some more while Mitch and principal are trying to figure out who did this. And the principal says, "Now let's cut to the chase, shall we? My boat was quietly removed from the storage warehouse behind the yacht sometime between 12:30 and 5:15. records meant that you were the only senior who has access to the particular warehouse. And Pacey says, and what just may those records might be. And principal says, I'll be asking the questions, Mr. Witter. And Pacey says, alright, I'll talk. But I gotta warn you, it's definitely boring. So then it goes to the next scene where Pacey is inside the squad car, and Pacey and Doug are silently sitting on the side as Joey drives by them and honks the horn. And Pacey goes, Doug? And Doug goes, yeah? And Pacey says, do you ever find yourself sitting out on the edge of the highway in your squad car and you got your radar gun in your hand, been out there for 4 hours and the only 3 cars have been passed, all going from under the speed limit, and you wonder what just the hell happened to your life? And Doug goes, pardon me? I hate when people say pardon me. It just makes me so annoyed. There was this one girl, this is besides the point, but there was this one girl in marching band, and every single time she wouldn't hear me, she'd go, pardon me? And I'm like, oh, that's so annoying. I don't know why, but usually what I do is, huh? What? I'm sure pardon me is more better than that. So, Pacey says, well, seriously, man, look at you. For all your Elliot Ness dreams and Harry Cullen's experiments, you're nothing. I mean, nobody. At least you're the bravest fence on the little pump town. What's that? And Doug says, does he have a point, Pacey? And Pacey says, no, not really. I'm just a little discouraged by it all. Which we know Pacey would never be a police officer. But then it goes to the next scene with Pacey, where they're on the sidewalk in the middle of the town, and Pacey is walking behind Doug as they are walking to someone's house. And Pacey says, would I be out of the line if I asked what we're doing here? And Doug says, someone stole a dog. And Pacey says, how do you know it didn't just get lost? And Doug says, we don't. The owner says we found some footprints in the dirt. It might be a gardener, but either way, we have to find this dog because it's a very important dog. And I'm like, I mean, I get it. Like, if my dog was stolen, I would freak out. Everyone in this house would freak out. And so Pacey says, wait, hold on. Is this what you meant when you told me that I need to learn more from watching you than any other cop episodes? Oh, come on. Don't tell me you're still angry at your little brother for a whole wasting your time stunt. I only sort of meant it honest. And Doug says, I want you to listen to me very closely, because I'm only going to say this one time. If you ever in your life care about anything as much as I care about being an officer in this town, I will be shocked. If you ever in your life are good at anything as I am about being an officer in this town, I will be shocked. If you ever in your life decide to judge me again, so God help me, I will beat your ugly right out of you. So I'm like, this is such like a not like Doug thing to say. For a long time, like, Pacey and Doug got along together, but the moment that Pacey kind of teased him like brothers do, that was not it. So then we have a scene where the principal and he's in the principal's office, and Pacey has just finished telling his tale to Mitch and the principal, and Mitch says, so you're telling me that if you're looking for the same dog that you suspected taking, the principal goes, Mitch, you are a sane and reasonable man, and obviously I'm not responsible for this whole fiasco, so why are we still here? And Mitch says, we're still here because a certain fresh detail has come to the light which suggests that you must at least be accountable for whereabouts yesterday. And Pacey says, you discussed my 9th grade pack with Dawson. And Pacey says, the principal goes, oh, you remembered that agreement too? I see. And Pacey says, well, of course I remember it. It was my idea. But did it ever occur to you that my not-so-close acquaintance / former best friend was a hint or a possibility, even a minister truly, only to develop expect it from him? And principal goes, Mr. Witter, justify is blind. If Dawson is responsible, we'll nail him, just as we nailed you. Which I'm like, okay, like, I don't know, like, one time when we had a senior prank where they did something to the varsity gym, I think they ruined the floor or something, like the new floors, so So they had to get a whole new floor. I believe that was in 9th grade. But, I mean, I only have a month of my senior year left, and no one has really done anything for right now. I don't know when people do senior pranks. I think my school threatened if you do a senior prank, you're not gonna walk and you're not gonna get your diploma. So there's that. Like, there's a lot of things that my school does for graduation, and they make it very, very serious. So I don't really know. I just feel like my school is a little bit too strict with that. So then we have scene 5 of Pacey, where the scene goes from the principal's office, and Pacey continues his tale of the day with Deputy Doug, and principal goes, "Wait a minute, you couldn't find the dog, so your brother made you get in the back of the car? I'm confused." And Pacey says, "I was confused too. It seemed so violently hostile, even for Dougie. Frankly, when he went in, I considered making a break for it." And then we see this scene where he's in the squad car, and Pacey is sitting there in the back seat waiting for Doug, and we can see him, he is upset and having to sit back there, which I'm like, me too, Pacey. And Dougie said, "Okay, alright," and Dougie and a gentleman comes out for the squad car, and the gentleman gets back in the front seat as Doug puts his groceries in the back seat with Pacey. And Doug says, "Well, Mike, the guy in the back is not a prep. He's my brother." And Mike says, "Oh, how's it going, Junior Witter?" And Pacey says, "It's been better." Okay. And so they arrive at Mike's house, and Mike gets out of the car and starts walking to the door, and Doug gets his groceries out of the back seat, and Pacey looks to see Mike take a walking cane out of his pocket and set it up, and he walks to the rest of the way to the door, and we realize that Mike is blind, and you can see the guilt wash over Pacey's face. And Doug says, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And Pacey says, "No reason." I like this scene because it kind of shows how, Doug is always, making fun of Pacey, and he's kind of being a jerk, but, when Pacey was moved in with Doug, yeah, Doug was like, "Don't touch this, don't do that," but he, allowed his brother to come in. And then also, he was the reason why Joey knew that Pacey was leaving. So there was that, and now we see Doug, threaten his brother, but then help a blind man, get his groceries and stuff. Which, I think there is so much, things going on, but I really do like that because it just shows how much, Doug has changed throughout the whole show, and he just keeps getting better and better. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 6 of Pacey, and he is in the Cape Side Marine, and Doug and Pacey are going up to the closed gates of the Marine, and Doug is shining his flashlights through the gate. In Pacey, there's a voiceover that says, "It was a little after 9 o'clock. When we get a call, and Doug and I head to the boat yard. Pacey says, You want to go in, don't you?" And he says, I have a code. True Love spent a couple nights in the motel, so and Pacey gets the key in the code, and he opens the door, and they walk in, and Drew comes out behind the boats, and Pacey says, "After you," and Doug says, "Mr. Valentine's, what brings you in, stalking through the shadows of after this hour?" And Drew says, "Anonymous phone call, boat's missing," and Doug says, "Then why someone call you?" And Drew says, "Well, they didn't technically. They called my mother, and this falls under her justification, so she sent me to check it out. I called the police, which is why you are here now, Deputy Witter." And Doug says, "Why could you possibly know? We also received an anonymous phone call roughly 20 minutes ago before your call," which begs the parting question. How do I know you didn't take this boat? And Drew says, Do you see me on the boat, man? I mean, you express me if you want. I bet you like that. Come on. Let's do the man dance." "Well, okay. Well, I guess I'm done, aren't I?" And Drew leaves, and Pacey goes and follows him after him. And Pacey says, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go too, Dougie. And Doug says, hey, Pacey, I can't drive you home now, alright? This is an officer business. And Pacey says, that's alright, I'll get a ride from Drew. Hey, Drew, hold on a second. And Doug says, hey, newsflash, Pacey, you hate Drew? And Pacey says, yes, I do, but it's only a ride home, and I'm gonna try to be a better person. Just like you. Besides, it's a karma thing. And Doug says, yeah, okay, goodbye. I like how he just lets Pacey go, even though he knows that he hates him. So then we have the principal's office where Pacey has finished up his tale for the day before, and Mitch and the principal are taking in what he has told them. And Pacey says, and that was it. Then I left with Drew. And principal goes, and where did you go? And Pacey says, well, I wanted to grab a bite to eat, but he said he was busy, so he dropped me home. Within 25 minutes, I was sleeping like a baby. The principal goes, all right, Pacey, you can go. Thanks for your help. Sorry for the inconvenience. And then Pacey says, seriously? And you're not just messing with me. And Mitch says, get out of here, Pace, before he changes his mind. And Pacey stands up, and the principal goes, something else, Mr. Witter. And Pacey says, yeah, I was just thinking, honestly, I think Dawson did either. And the principal goes, why is that? And Pacey goes, that guy was way too responsible to pull off that kind of crime. At least without my coding, you know? Just not that type of guy. I like how he defends Dawson throughout everything. And he was like, Dawson would never do this. Like, let's be honest here. Dawson would never make this a thing. Like, it kind of shows how much Dawson and him have really changed a little bit throughout this episode. But it's mostly showing the history that they have done together. So then we have scene 2 with Joey, and she's in the Cape Side hallway. And Drew is getting some books out of his locker as Joey walks by. And Drew laughs, and he says, hey, Harry Potter, come here. And Joey says, what's going on? And Drew says, send a message to the boys, will for me. Tell them that I admire their brilliant for the design. No, wait. Just tell them I said, touchy. And then he slams the locker, and Joey says, which boys? What happened? And Drew says, karma. Finally caught up with me. So basically, Drew gets a spell. So then we have scene 8 of Pacey. And he is outside the principal of the police station. And Pacey is waiting for Doug and holding a Krispy Kreme donut. And Pacey says, look, I just wanted to come by and say thanks for letting me do the whole ride along yesterday. It was humiliating. And Doug says, have you ever heard of anything that was in line with sarcasm? And Pacey says, I'm admitting I was wrong, Doug. What I did to you, it matters as much, not as well, if any of the job I will be willing to hold down. And Doug says, well, that's interesting. Coming from yesterday, I didn't even think it was mattered at all. And Pacey says, well, now that I think about it, I mean, I know it matters to Mike. I know that it matters to some dumb kid you're gonna keep from killing all his friends in a car wreck when you pull by for speeding and scared the crap out of him. And I'm guessing that it will probably matter in a million other subsets ways that I, without substitutely of an elephant in an antique shop, will never ever notice. And Doug says, yeah, it wasn't me doing the job, it was someone else. And Pacey says, but it is you, Doug. It's you, and I would never be quick to dismiss. I mean, perfectly honest, I wish I could be so lucky someday to ride the shotgun with you. And Doug says, I think that would be a mistake. And Pacey says, hey, you don't think I would make much of the cop, huh? And Doug says, not really, no. No, Pacey, I think that you would be a darling ordinarily. I think you would take talent in for the face of a convenience. And I think that when you were born to break the rules, not to enforce them. And you know what? I actually admire that in you. I really do, Pacey. And Pacey says, what? Did my big brother just admit that he admired me for the first time ever? And Doug denies it and says, it's more like I'm just terrified at the thought of you sitting in the squat car with you for another minute. Which, I like this because it's not like the Witter family making fun of Pacey throughout all this. It's like the Witter family finally recognizing that Pacey is a human and he does certain things. But, like, I like how this dynamic with, like, Doug and Pacey are working out. I feel like it's a very typical thing to hold up a Krispy Kreme donut when Pacey knew that he messed up like he always does with Joey. And I feel like this is kind of where, because Doug and Pacey, like, lived together for a while, and there was, like, where Doug and Pacey had, like, serious conversations about Joey and all this different kind of stuff, we finally see the dynamic between Pacey and Doug when they're not hating each other. And that's my favorite thing of all time. So then we have the last scene, which honestly is my favorite scene, and it's like scene 3 of Pacey and Joey. And they're at Dawson's house when Mitch opens the door to see Joey and lets her in. And Joey says, "Is Dawson here?" And Mitch says, "I'm not sure, you can check in his room if you like." And Joey says, "Thanks." And Mitch says, "Hey Joey, if he is up there, tell him I know, and congratulations." And she looks at him and then walks up to Dawson's room to see Dawson and Pacey putting paint and some other stuff into a trash can. And Joey says, "Okay, explanation time." And Jack comes into Dawson's room and climbing through the window, and Jack says, "It's a bitch getting up here without a ladder." And Joey says, "Ah." And Jack goes, "Joey, what is she doing here, guys? I thought we were supposed to be doing this alone." And Joey says, "I knew it. The 3 of you did it, didn't you? You guys put the boat in the pool. You did it." And Pacey says, "Just calm down for a second." He's like trying to be like, there's no reason to jump into silly conclusions. We didn't pull off that prank. And Dawson says, "We have the right opponents." And Jack says, "Yeah, besides, Drew did it." And Dawson says, "On the other hand, if we did pull off the prank, the 3 of us that Jack could have swum by the pantry sometimes after we meet Drew at the hardware store. He could have done the paint he accidentally took home, and Chester the dog with the necessary food and water, of course, tied up to the tree as a reference point." And Pacey says, "I could have gotten the storage faculty sometimes after 1:30 when Drew dropped off the keys." And Dawson says, "And 3:30 when I had to get back to Mr. Brooks' house, Pacey would have given me the code. And I would have had the Mitchmobile to tow the truck back into the same reference point Jack had been to earlier. I then would have left the boat in the car with Chester and the paint. Later on, Pacey would have asked Drew to drop by him somehow near the reservation point. And when arriving at the location, Pacey would have gathered up all the assessment materials and then have the predation into the pool gymnasium to finish the job. And 11 o'clock we were done, and everyone would have still none no wiser. Of course, that would be hypothetically." And Pacey says, "Right." I'm like, don't they have, like, security cameras to, like, check all this out? Like, I was surprised when they were getting interviewed. And, like, I mean, I know it's 2000, but wouldn't you have interviews? Like, wouldn't you have, like those, like, security cameras at all? Like, wouldn't you think that? And so Jack says, "The truth is, Doug Valentine's was, and will always be a lone arc criminal behind it all. Well, I, for one, am glad to see that kid got what he was finally coming on." And Joey says, "Karma." And they're sitting at the bed, and, like, Pacey says exactly, and we see, like, Pacey smiling at Joey, and I just thought that was so sweet. Like, and then we had Pacey, and he is in the middle of nowhere, and Dawson and Pacey are burying the bag of stuff in the hole that they digged a hole, like, in the ground, and shoveling and scraping, and Pacey says, "What are you thinking?" And Dawson says, "I was thinking we pulled it off." Hee. And Pacey says, "I was thinking that it's been right tonight that it's been for a long, long time. I just keep forgetting why we're still not friends." And Dawson says, "It's not that simple." And Pacey says, "Of course it's not. It's just that." And Dawson says, "I know." And Pacey says, "Let me tell you, Dawson, when you told me that you'd never be able to trust me again, That was probably among the 5 worst moments of my life. And Dawson says, when I walked out of the back porch and saw you and Joey, that was my worst. Number 1 with a bullet. Which I'm like, that means you don't have much worse moments of your life. Because I thought number 1 would probably be when you thought you were gonna, like, be lost in that fire or something. But anyway, and Dawson says, I would like to believe... Oh, and Pacey says, do you think it's possible that someday I would convince you that maybe I'm the type of person that you can trust again? And Dawson says, I would like to believe that is. And Pacey says, I'm going to try. I'm never going to give up on you. And Dawson says, well, if it doesn't work out, we can always kill each other. Which I'm like, I really like this episode because it kind of goes back to, like, how much Pacey and Dawson have had that history together. And yeah, they're, like, not speaking at the moment, but I think it's more like a man thing. Like, when girls get into a fight, they're, like, petty about it. When guys get into a fight, or Dawson and Pacey get into a fight, like, yeah, they know that they're, like, mad at each other, but they'll still do things with each other, which always makes me laugh because I'm like, you're not supposed to be talking, but at the same time you are talking, so that always makes me laugh. I don't know, like, I think about it and I'm like, something's off here, but not really at the same time. Like, Pacey just kind of like, he doesn't push Dawson in any type of way, but every so often he'll be like, hey, can we ever be friends again? Like, is that a possibility? I like how some episodes, like, it's focused on, like, Dawson and Pacey, and some episodes it's focused on Joey and Pacey. Well, Joey and Pacey, then Dawson and Pacey, and then Pacey and, like, Joey. So then we have, like, all these, like, 3 things that make the triangle, and it's, like, the best thing, because the next episode will be based off of Pacey and Joey, which will probably be a longer episode, but I like how much, like, their, like, dynamic is, like, my favorite thing, like, how the show keeps going back and forth. Like, some episodes are based off this, and some episodes are based off of this, but at the end of the day, this is what it's like. So, if you like this podcast, please make sure to come back on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. Make sure to review this podcast, give it 5 stars, leave a kind review, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's Jacey's Great Podcast, and leave your thoughts down below. You can put a thumbs up if you like, but please leave your thoughts down below, whatever you're thinking about this episode or a past episode, or even a future episode that you'd like me to mention. And lastly, if you have not already, make sure to follow my Instagram, that's Witter and Potter, my TikTok, that's Pacey and Joey, and again, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Do all the things. Bye, guys.